Welcome to Tripod, our travel retail themed podcast in association with the SEVA Group. I'm Martin Moodie.
I'm Roger Jackson.
Roger, good as always to be back together on the show. We've got a very interesting guest coming along in a few moments, but tell us firstly, how's things in your business and the business?
I think we're seeing a slow recovery when I talk about travel retail industry. I think we're seeing a slow recovery. I think most regions are reporting increases in business, purely linked to, well, I guess linked to two things. One, passenger numbers, and two, what we're generally seeing is average weight of purchase is up across most categories, definitely alcohol and tobacco. So I think that's good news for most retailers, brand owners and distributors. It's slow. I think we always thought it would be, specifically in the Middle East where I sit today. You know, the Middle East is looking pretty good. You know, Column and Ramesh from Dubai Duty Free, obviously our largest single site retailer in the world. They were interviewed recently, and you know they were talking about their business being back about 65%, about 1.3, 1.4 billion out of the 2 billion they did in 2019. So you know, broadly 65% back. And I think that's generally what we're seeing. I think Europe lags a bit behind that, and perhaps the Americas as well. And Asia obviously is still very much depressed, mainly with lack of Chinese flights, your situation in Hong Kong and Singapore. But I think in summary, I think we're seeing a slow return. And I think that's probably what will continue to happen in 2022. Into 2023, and you know, if you look at any of the forecasts, they're all suggesting China comes back 2024. So I think we'll, you know, dependent on fourth waves and you know other things that could happen with the virus. I think we're looking at sort of a slow return over the next 24 months. But the good news is, I think most people are pretty positive, and they've all cut their cloth accordingly, and you know, they can either break even or make money at this level, which I think is fantastic for our industry. You said, you know, what else is going on? I think, you know, we had International Women's Day a few weeks ago. I think we should touch on that with Syama being a female leader in travel retail. So, but I think that's a really important topic and one we should continue to debate and discuss, because especially in our industry, is in terms of alcohol for me and wider travel retail. I still think we, you know, with us challenges there.
All right, Roger, we've got a guest well known to you, very special woman. Shall we bring her in?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this episode's special guest is Syama Nair, Area Manager, India, Middle East and Africa Travel Retail at Brown-Forman, the great American spirits company whose portfolio runs from, of course, Jack Daniels, to Woodford Reserve, to Herradura Tequila, the Ben Riach, Finlandia Vodka, Chambord Liqueur, among many other outstanding wine and spirits brands. Now, Syama is based in Dubai, where she's worked in the duty-free sector since 2005, variously with Diageo, Godiva, and now, of course, Brown-Forman. So with no further ado, Syama, welcome to Tripod.
Martin, Roger, thank you so much for having me. I've been going through your earlier podcasts, and the guests that you have on the podcast are amazing. I mean, the last one that I saw was of Stephanie in February, and that was absolutely outstanding. And I'm really, really grateful that you invited me over. So really, thank you.
No, thank you for being with us. And we have had some great guests, and we love kind of just talking, not just work, but talking about life and the whole damn thing with our guests. And it's been a good formula, for which I thank my co-host Roger Jackson, because it was his bright idea. And I'm going to hand over to you now, Roger, to kick off the show.
Hey, Syama.
Hey, Roger.
Me and Syama have worked together for a long time, so she's an old dear friend. So it's lovely to have you on the podcast. I guess that's sort of where I'm going to start. So your career started off in Mumbai. Could you just let us know a bit more about, you know, starting off in your career in Mumbai, and then what led you to Dubai, obviously, which is where you call home now?
Yeah. Mumbai, or Bombay, as I knew it, is where I was brought up. So you're right. That's where I'm from. The career that I had in India was in a completely different sector. It was a financial services sector. And that was quite by accident. And I'm pretty sure you would remember, at least some of us would remember, back in the days, companies used to advertise job openings in the newspaper. And in India, because of the number of people who would apply for a role, there was quite a regime in terms of, especially large companies would put you through an aptitude test, a group discussion, and a panel interview before you could actually get into the organization. I was always encouraged to apply for whatever came through, and I did apply for a company called Datamatics Financial Services. And it turned out that I passed all those hurdles and actually made it. So I just stuck on. And that was the start of a 9-year career in the financial services industry. I just changed jobs twice there, but that's where I started. And much as it might seem irrelevant to the current role that I'm doing, I think that a lot of my base was there. I managed large government-owned financial institutions. Those were my customers. And kind of, it shaped my career to where I am, what I'm doing today.
And what led you to Dubai then, and the move to Dubai?
In Mumbai, everybody knew my name, and that's the kind of place you want to stick around. I had very strong family ties there. But Vinod, who's now my husband, encouraged me. According to him, fresh beginnings always enrich life's experiences, and he convinced me enough to pack a bag, leave my life in India, and travel to Dubai. And here I am. I think it's been about 18 years now.
And what was your first role in Dubai? Was that with Diageo?
It was with Diageo. So I've never been a lady of leisure. So as soon as I came in, I was looking for a role somewhere in the financial services sector or the banking sector. And a friend actually told me that someone she knows in Diageo was looking for a temporary position to support with a finance-led project, and it sounded nerdy enough for me. And I did an interview for what was meant to be a 3-month stint, which ultimately led to a 14-year journey, a beautiful one that was filled with growth, happiness. That was that, and obviously that led me to travel retail as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. And then on the way to travel retail, I guess, what did you think of it when you came across travel retail? As we all have, Martin, obviously a lot longer than the two of us, but what led you to travel retail, and then what did you think when you got there?
Roger, having managed the region, you would probably know that travel retail has never been separated out from this region. It has always remained an integral part of it. I mean, Diageo has gone through many changes, but the importance of travel retail, particularly for this region, has always been a constant. And that's where, I was dropped into it. I was never, slowly taken into it. I was dropped into it. I did a variety of roles. I was involved in a sort of financial analysis, commercials, planning, etc. All of that then led me to manage my first customer, the Duty Free. And then, it led on to managing the Gulf region, MENA, and then the entirety of GTR from a commercial effectiveness perspective. Roger, that's when I met you in 2016.
Yep. And then you went over to chocolate, big change from alcohol. How was that transition into another category?
I did. I mean, obviously, travel retail in all its, dynamic form, and I mean, diverse a bit, but travel retail has always remained a dynamic industry. If I go back to 2008, for instance, when the big financial crisis happened, little did we know, big financial crisis, as we named it then, happened. The Duty Free was the only organization which could boast of a year-on-year growth. And I think they actually even crossed a milestone of $1 billion in sales. Travel retail has always remained that sort of, pillar to any organization. And in Godiva, that's kind of what, again, attracted me, because it was a travel retail role. Again, it was managing Middle East and Africa. So that was my sort of area of responsibility. And it was a completely different category, came with its own challenges. I've been working in spirits for 14 years. Chocolates melt in the summer heat, chocolates expire. They were very different sets of challenges compared to what the spirits industry goes through. It was an absolutely exciting time. It was all just a year or so in Godiva, but I could safely say I put on a bit of weight. The factory visits were amazing. Those were kind of the highlights of my time at Godiva. And then 2020 happened. We started working from home in March. We thought it was a few weeks and then we'll be out of it. Like the rest of us, I think we all imagined that this was temporary, but the seriousness of it dawned, probably around April, and we had to have some very quick decisions taken, very tough decisions taken. We worked through with retailers to ensure that containers of chocolates didn't go to waste, because those were containers either sitting on a ship here, or going to be aboard a ship, or already sitting in warehouses here, and we had to make sure that we somehow used up those chocolates and it didn't go waste. And that was when working with retailers, suppliers and retailers working together really came to light. Really, the importance of it just came to light. Together, I think we mitigated a large amount of risk over there. So yeah, that interesting times, really learned a lot from that, and then moved over to the other side again.
I was going to say, and then we got you back over to the dark side, back to spirit and alcohol. What was your thoughts around there? And obviously working for a great, as Martin said at the start, a great American company. How was that, and what's the first sort of year been like?
So Roger, if you look at it, everybody does this. Before an interview, they would go into the website of the organization they're going to interview with, go through, the values, the company values. Obviously, the company values resonated highly with, my own values, but that was no surprise, because these values are not isolated to Brown-Forman. You would see quite a few of these values probably appear in other organizations as well, because these are core values that are necessary for an organization to survive in the way that they must be. But what actually, tipped the scale for me really was when I spoke to people, whether through the formal interview process or whether outside of it, each one actually lived these values. You could see these values shining through people. And that really encouraged me to go deeper and deeper into, understanding more about the organization. The recruitment process was absolutely fantastic. You had a really balanced panel of interviewees. One of the interviews, which was meant to be for an hour, turned out to be a 2-hour interview. So it was really good conversations that happened at that time. And I was really wanting to just get into Brown-Forman and get my hands dirty there. And once I did, I realized that I was not mistaken at all. And I know I have been waxing eloquent about Brown-Forman to you as well, so I'm going to stop now. But it has been a great experience so far. Love the brands. I was never an American whiskey drinker, but when I saw the process that goes into creating a bottle of Jack Daniels, I was blown away. And now my evenings are, not all evenings, but my weekends, American whiskey does feature quite a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting, Syama, that we talk about craft spirits so much these days, don't we? But so many of the great traditional spirits brands of our world, and you just mentioned one, and I could mention another, which is among my top 5, I think, Woodford Reserve. Those are craft spirits. They are the epitome, to me, of craft spirits. Craft spirits doesn't mean it has to come from a small company. They can come from a very big company, such as Brown-Forman.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, well, we'll have a glass of Jack and Woodford Reserve next time I'm in Dubai. I look forward to that. I'm going to ask you about the key influences along the way on your life and career in a moment, Syama. But I want to ask you about, before he became a professional TV host, Roger, of course, worked in Diageo. What was he like to work with? You can spill the beans now.
Well, we have locked quite a few horns, and at the end of the day, those, that was completely mitigated with a glass that we could cling together, and those were purely based on, doing the best for the organization, and obviously as we could, we worked, and I mean, he was great to work with, to be honest. Even
that's the answer. That's the answer.
That, yeah, you could focus on that bit, but yes, I mean, Roger, do you remember those lion references that you always kept shoving on us? So Roger,
Martin, you won't know this, but the Instagram memes of lions and packs of lions hunting together. I once shared one of them. The team found it quite funny, so I carried on sharing them all the time.
Okay. Well, apart from Roger, then, Syama, tell us about the influences on your not just your career, but your life. Who would be the people you'd single out, and why?
I mean, no surprise, the early influencers were my parents, and we had a very uncomplicated life, to be honest. All my parents asked of me and my sister was to get good grades, and if they were better than the neighbors, it was a bonus. So, I mean, like any Indian family would, you are expected to bring home good grades. But having said that, it was never without their support. So they would always support us, no matter what. And they would share with us their own failures or their own struggles, what they did wrong. And, the values that they instilled in us was phenomenal to how myself and my sister shaped up. My dad in particular, I mean, he's not had an easy life. There's a lot of struggle that he went through to be where he was. And the one thing that he never, walked away from would be he would always do the right thing. And that's one big value that he has instilled on myself and my sister. Integrity is a huge part of, who we are. So I would say from a character influencing perspective, it would be my parents. And then from a career perspective, and this would surprise you as well, it was Vinod, my husband. This is more from I'm a person who would, before I met Vinod, would have put out, self-induced kind of limitations on myself. And Vinod was the one who kept encouraging me to shatter that ceiling. For him, it was always blue sky thinking. So we were really opposites when it came to that. And he would always encourage me to, do what I'm uncomfortable with. He would drop me in an ocean and make me swim. So big kudos to him, in terms of how I've, my faltering steps turned into more confident ones. And of course, I have been lucky enough to have had coaches, mentors, leaders. I've worked closely with you as well, Roger, and I've learned a lot from you as well. And in the same respect as I would have learned from other leaders in the organization, whether it be India or whether it be here in the UAE, I've had the good fortune of having worked with many leaders and peers from whom I have taken a lot away.
All right, very good. Well, I'm learning a lot from him too. He's a much younger man, as you can tell, and we're proving that you can teach an old dog new tricks. So he's teaching me how to be a TV host, and we're doing okay, aren't we? So I've got to ask you about International Women's Day. Now, we've just celebrated it worldwide. Beautiful celebrations globally. Lots of questions raised at the same time as the celebrations, of course. And while enormous progress has been made in recent years, there's still a lot of things to change, I think. You're in an industry, a sector, and I'm talking drinks rather than travel retail here, that was historically, of course, very, very male dominated. When I came into the business 100 years ago or so, it was very much a macho male dominated business. And I'm really happy to see how that's changed over the years. But do you still see particular challenges facing women in the drink sector, and for that matter, in the travel retail world?
Yes, I mean, there are challenges still, but I think we are really making strides in the right direction, Martin. And I'm going to quote an example from a very recent it's a very recent example, and it involves a colleague of mine from Brown-Forman, and I have her permission to share. She was currently torn. This was back in November when we had Cannes. When we all went to Cannes, and she is a single mom, and she was torn between the decision to attend Cannes versus, she couldn't hand her baby over to anybody, so she had to be there. She couldn't travel, basically, and she was the one. I mean, she had worked hugely to sort of bring Cannes to life, whether it was from a stands perspective and what we did with the stands, or whether it was from a presentations perspective. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that she had put into it. And for her not to be there when she really wanted to would have been a shame. So, it was very natural for Brown-Forman to say, just bring him over as well, So to our delight, there was a 6-month-old baby at Cannes, with her. And it just goes to prove she could do both. She didn't have to make that choice. She could be a great mom and a great, career person. And I think that's where the changes come. I would doubt that a decade ago, this would have actually happened. And I would also, at the same time, I would also question, does every company have this kind of an ethos, and do all companies follow these kind of principles? I would like to believe they do, but I don't think all of them do. And that's where we do need to make a switch. We do need to understand that a woman is not the primary caregiver at all times, which still in some cultures, women are still considered to be the primary caregivers, whereas that needs to change. And that's where I think, if you're talking about an industry as a whole, yes, I think, that's where things need to change. And fair play, colleagues, men, women, everyone is, now at this point in time trying to level that playing field. And it is not level yet, but I know that we are going in the right direction. So from a drinks industry perspective, I see more women there. I see more encouragement. It's no longer a boys club where it's just, playing golf or whatever else it is that you lads do. But it is. You have WITR. It's, I think we've made strides in the right direction there.
Syama, it's great, first of all, to hear that Brown-Forman example. And the person you're talking about, we won't mention her, but she's a joint friend. So, and we both work with her. So it's fantastic to hear that. I think the thing on this subject for me, Martin, without changing this about Syama too much, is it's about how genuine companies are with this. Every company has got, a equal, employment legislation. They've got a policy, but when it comes down to it, do they do what Syama just explained that Brown-Forman did? And that is more down to line managers rather than policy, because it's down to, does this person travel to Cannes or not with their child? Will we be flexible? And I think that's the big change that needs to happen. At the top, of course, the right messages are coming down, but does it properly flow down into real, genuine actions? And Syama's just given a great example where it obviously does in Brown-Forman, and it's fantastic to hear. The challenge I have, and it's similar to sustainability, actually, everyone talks good game, but what's really happening? Yeah. And that's where a lot of the companies, especially in the alcohol industry, really need to step it up, because there's a lot of businesses out there that if you're a single parent or you are the primary caregiver, whether male or female, actually the company does not care less, and you're the one expected to work the extra longer hours, work through the night, or cover that. And as we all know, as the saying says, it takes a village to raise a child, and parents need support.
Absolutely. That child actually on the last day even came into the conference I don't know how he did it. He had no pass, but he did come into the conference stand.
Well said, Roger, and Syama, thanks for that. So we've come a long way down the road, but there's still a considerable highway ahead of us, I think. We're going to change tone a little bit now. We're going to have some fun. Syama, if you've listened to previous episodes of Tripod, you will know that Roger and I have invested in some real estate out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and it's called the Tripod Desert Island. And we take our guests onto that island. It's a beautiful place, and we give them a few creature comforts to enjoy themselves while they're there. So I'm going to hand over to Roger to take you onto the island and see how we can help you stay entertained.
So Syama, the first thing that you can bring is a book or a piece of reading. So what would you like to bring and why?
It's very difficult to choose between books and also to choose between books you've read and ones that you really want to read but haven't got the time to. Desert Island seems like the perfect place to do that. But actually on this occasion, I think I'll choose a book that I have read. And it's The Castle by Franz Kafka. Obviously not for the language because he writes in German and it's a translation that I read, the translation into English. But I don't know if either of you have read it, but the ending kind of just startles you. That when you get to the last page, you're stunned. So I would read it all over again. And I would, if I had the time on that island, I would try and put my own ending to it and see what that might turn out like. He's a bit of an absurdist writer. The likes of the likes of Gabriel Marquez, I can never pronounce it, have taken inspiration from his style of writing. So I really enjoy that. But but I would take Kafka with me.
Along with your book, you can take some music, so whether it's a song or an album. So what's going to accompany your book?
It has to be Amy Winehouse, Back to Black. I love her voice. I mean, it's powerful, it's haunting. And if you can have her cover of Valerie thrown in, it's a bonus. But yeah.
Sounds good. It's shaping up nicely. Now, we usually let people bring one item of duty free. I'm presuming one of those is going to be an American whiskey. So I'm going to let you have two items. So one from the alcohol category and another. We've been very generous today with increased allowances. So what two items would you like to bring?
Right, if it's two, then even better, because I was deliberating between two options. So my first option would be a GlenDronach 16-year-old. Now, even before I had interviewed for Brown-Forman, my husband and I are both whiskey lovers. We had stumbled upon GlenDronach and we jointly shook hands on the fact that it is one of the most beautiful liquids that we've had. So a 16-year-old, I mean, as all single malts go, is not very easy to get your hands on. It's limited in production, but I will make an exception for your island and get some allocation there and get that along. And if I am able to bring one more bottle, that would be a JD single barrel. And I think that's one variant of Jack Daniels that we haven't really explored fully. And you will hear more about single barrel in the coming few years, but it is one that we are, I mean, it's a beautiful liquid in a beautiful bottle. I mean, what's not to like?
What's not to like indeed? Wow, great choices. I think, Syama, from memory, I know I've got a bottle, but I'm trying to think of its kind of provenance of GlenDronach back in London. I'm in Hong Kong now, and I've had it for years and years, and it goes back to former ownership. I think Allied Domecq used to own the brand. You probably don't know Allied Domecq because I think it was dead and buried by the time you came on board, but Roger will know. I think they were the owner, or Allied Distillers were the owner at one stage. And
Allied Distillers.
Yeah, I've got a beautiful old bottle in a kind of wraparound case presentation that's sitting under my floorboards in London. So next time I go back, I'm going to pick that out and bring it back to Hong Kong with me. And it sounds as though the juice is going to be very good indeed.
Oh, absolutely. The 50-year-old is being released now. That's under allocation as well. So, Martin, you might want to keep it for, obviously it won't age in a bottle, but you could probably pass it off as a 50-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fascinating. All right, Syama, one of the nice things we do, you've been in isolation a little bit on this island, so we want you to have some great company. And we're going to bring 3 guests in for you. They can be from history or they can be from modern day times. Who would your special dinner guests be, and why would you choose them?
Well, okay. So my first one would be P.G. Wodehouse. Growing up, I always read his books, and it would make a terrible day better for me. It was always my go-to book at all times. And I could read them, through the end and then flip back to the first page again and read it again. I mean, the creator of Jeeves, creator of Bertie Wooster, I absolutely love him. So I'd love to have him there, know what he's really like, and, meet the man who's actually unknowingly made my childhood better. Or even now, actually, not just the childhood part of it. My second guest, a bit frivolous, is Michael McIntyre. Keeps me in splits. I love his humor. I know not everybody might like him, but I do think that a dinner table with Michael McIntyre cannot go wrong from a conversation point of view. My third one would be Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. And that would be, but selfishly, because I would love to get some nuggets of, leadership advice from her. But at the same time, I'd love to see how she gels in with that crowd, with 2 very likely different personalities. So those would be my 3 guests.
Oh, a great dinner party. If anyone's ever read P.G. Wodehouse on golf, or if you haven't, I recommend that you do, because it makes what can be a dull and boring game absolutely come alive. He's so droll. His wit is magnificent. So I'm right there with you, Syama, on that one. Okay. Well, I think you've had a pretty good time on this island, but it's time to leave. And before we go back to Dubai, we're going to fly you anywhere in the world as our thanks for being on the program. And on the island, where would it be and why?
Well, if it's a family vacation, right, I would go back to this place called Cinque Terre. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's in Italy. It's 5 villages, that have come together. You drive down to all those villages. It's stunning. They're absolutely beautiful. Beautiful food, beautiful wine, great people, quiet. And it was the first family vacation that we took with Agastya in Europe. He was just 9 months old. Sorry, that's my son, Martin. So that was the first time we took Agastya to Europe. So he would probably not have understood much of it, but we did have a great time there, and I'd love to go back.
Well, sounds good. Well, we'll do our best to get you there. Syama, it's been lovely to talk to you. We've really enjoyed the conversation, haven't we, Roger? And it's been good to kind of walk through your journey in life as well as your journey in work. And we're sure that journey's got a long way to run yet, and much success we wish you on it. But thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks, Roger.
Roger, you've known Syama for several years in your professional life. First time I've met her, what an articulate, intelligent, and very engaging woman. I thought it was a really nice conversation, just the kind of conversation that I hope Tripod draws out of people.
Yeah, I've known Syama probably nearly a decade now. She's got a really nice, diverse career, starting obviously in finance and then moving over to commercial, which, whilst that's not my background, that's the one that I think is the perfect route into commercial. So you've got that really great, experience and skill base before you come into commercial. So I think that's definitely the best thing. And for Syama, it's obviously worked. Some great experience, obviously, with Diageo, then Godiva in a different category, which is always difficult. Selling alcohol to move to confectionery is a very, very, it's a shift. It's different, and we've experienced that with the business that we have. We do luggage, tobacco and alcohol, and the pivot needed is, you think it's going to be easy and it's not. It really is very different. And then she's come back home to, to selling spirits again. So it's fantastic to hear from her. She's got some real, very insightful. I know she's a wide reader. So when she gave us her desert island, books and music, I knew it would be really considered. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to have Syama on, and it's a pleasure to continue to know her and see her and her family thrive.
Yeah, it was really good indeed. Yeah, Franz Kafka onto the desert island. That's pretty impressive. All right, Roger. Well, listen, thanks for inviting Syama. That was great. Stay well. Hope your business continues to keep on its upward curve. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Martin Moodie saying see you next week.
See you next week.